In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how I edit my Lumen prints. I'll show you how to use the healing brush tool and the clone tool. I'll also show you how to adjust the contrast of your image and how to change the colors. At the end of this tutorial, I'll also be sharing a quick overview of how I use a third-party software called Alien Skin Exposure 7 to color grade my Lumen prints. The first step of editing your Lumen print is to remove unwanted marks made from the Lumen printing process and the scanning process. I will be removing this round shape near the subject's ear and the slivers of white along the edges. If your scanning bed is dusty during your scan, the dust will show up in your scanned image. It's up to you whether you consider this a bug or a feature. To begin editing your image, create a new layer by selecting the New Layer button, which looks like a square and a plus sign within it, at the bottom right-hand corner of your layer panel. Double-click Layer 1. Type Healing Brush and press Enter on your keyboard. Then select the Spot Healing Brush tool. Make sure that Sample All Layers is checked. Once selected, I use my Wacom pen and draw over the dust and flex to remove them. If you want to zoom into your image, you can select Control or Command on a Mac and the plus or minus symbols on your keyboard to zoom in and out. I suggest working in small sections at a time with this tool. If I want to create a straight selection with this healing tool along the edge, I just hold down Shift and draw my line. All right, I'm going way overboard here. I think you get the idea. So that's that tool. So that is just, you can draw over all these little bits and the computer, the algorithm, the software will fill it in with what is surrounding that selected area. So that's really cool, really easy, really quick. If you mess up, go ahead and select Control Z. Control Z is your friend. Create a new layer, and it will appear on the top of your layer stack. We're going to double click this again, and we're going to name it Clone Stamp. Hit Enter, and then we are going to find this. It looks like a little stamp, like a vintage wooden stamp. We're going to make sure that this sample says all layers. All layers. To use the clone stamp tool, you're going to want to press the Alt key and simultaneously select an area or draw over an area that you want to use as your sample. So now we have sampled this area and we can draw over here and it will fill it in. Okay. So sometimes this is more of an experimental thing because it won't work out as well as it just did. But what I am noticing right off the bat is that this brush I'm using is too soft. You see how it just looks like a soft edge, and that's going to come up right against the ear, and this line of the ear is quite hard. So how we adjust that is we go up here, and there's an option to change the percentage of your brush's hardness. So right now it's at 0, and it can go all the way up to 100. Regardless of the numbers, we're just going to increase it. I'm going to start at around 75-ish, 74, I guess. And we are going to see, and I always click not on the image because it will activate the tool. I just kind of click off to the side. So I'm going to zoom in. Look at that. I missed a little fuzzy. That's okay. And see if that hardness looks accurate. Looks similar to the line, and I think that looks pretty good. So I would continue to draw, and I'm zoomed in way far here, but it's just for this little bit. This is not the amount I would be working zoomed in for the entire image. That would be crazy. So I'm just going to fill this in as much as I can really quickly, and then kind of get closer. So this does take time, especially in a specific area like this where it's along the face. I want it to look seamless. This is why I also use a Wacom tablet. It is way more precise when drawing like this on an image. If you are using a mouse, you can do it, but it is much more challenging. A trackpad would be so hard. But if that's all you got, that's okay. Make it happen. I think that looks pretty good. I think we're going to move on. So you can use a combination of these tools to remove most unwanted elements in your Lumen print. They are very powerful, and I use them both on a regular basis. I like to add contrast to my Lumen prints, so I add a curves adjustment layer. You can add a curves adjustment layer by clicking the white circle down here, then selecting curves. To darken the shadows of your image, click on the left-hand side of the diagonal line and drag the point downward. To brighten the highlights of your image, click on the right-hand side of the diagonal line and drag upward. By adjusting this S-curve, we are introducing contrast into our image. To close out of the properties box, simply click the double arrows. All right, so we've added contrast to our image. You can add a gradient map by clicking on the circle icon on the bottom right hand side and selecting gradient map. We are going to use gradient maps that are called legacy gradients. In order to access these gradients, we are going to go to Window and then down to Gradients. And we are going to hit this fly out menu icon and go down here to Legacy Gradients. Now you can hit the arrows here because we're not going to use this box. And double click Gradient Map icon. Come back up here to the color preview. There's a arrow here, hit the arrow, and then you're probably gonna have to scroll all the way down. Select the legacy gradients, and then inside this folder, there are several folders, and you can just play around with all of these really fun gradient maps. There are so many. things to choose from. So these are kind of far out there, but like you could definitely use these if you want. They're really fun. If you don't have alien skin exposure software, like I'm going to show you here in a second, you could just use this black and white option here. So in the next video in this series, I'm going to be adding a texture to this image, and it's going to be based on whether or not that image is black and white. So if you would like to follow along, you can definitely just choose a black and white gradient map, which you can even just get in the basics one. I just really like the legacy gradients because I'm used to them. So if you do use this gradient map, the basic one in Photoshop, I would just suggest maybe adding another curves layer adjustment, just making it a little bit more contrasty. Like that for the next video. But moving on, I'm gonna get rid of this and get rid of this. I'm going to talk about how I use Alien Skin Exposure 7 software to color grade my images. So for this, we've gotten it to this place. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to merge all of my layers together by pressing Control-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Option-Shift-E on a Mac at the same time. Control-Alt-Shift-E. And I rename this merged. So I know that that's what that layer is. I am going to now open Alien Skin Exposure 7. I love Alien Skin Exposure. It offers film presets from every era, letting me create vintage and cinematic and textured looks. It also allows me to create unique images by adding overlays, different types of grain, and photo frames. This is probably a sad sample image to show you from because it's in black and white. You know, this is the black and white I'm wanting, and it's just showing me the last thing I used. That's okay. I just want you guys to get an idea that this has got some really interesting things in it. So I'm going to scroll down here. They've got Kodak, Agfa, Fuji, Ilford. They literally have everything. It's the most incredible software I think I've ever bought. So I'm coming down to the Polaroid section, and I really love this Polaroid 55 aged. I generally use this as a finishing color grading tool. I do most of the color grading in Photoshop and then bring it in here and see if I can just make it pop even more. But right now I'm going to go to, I think it's overlays. We're gonna, click off border. But there's light effects that you can introduce. Lots of different things. You can also upload your own files to use within this. So texture is really helpful, as if this image needs any more texture. But so opacity, you can adjust that, and they have a blend mode option as well. So it's similar to Photoshop. There's so many adjustments in here that I love. The grain is really fun. They get some really chunky, awesome grain if you want. There's so many different variations. Anyway, it's very powerful. But for now, we're gonna stick with this, and it will bring the image into Photoshop for me. In the next video in this series, I'll show you how to add textures to your Lumen prints and use blending modes to create unique images. If If you enjoyed this video on editing Lumen prints, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more creative tutorials and head over to megandmorrow.com for additional resources and inspiration.